can I go forward when I don't know which way I'm...
It was just 2 lines, simple, raw, and quietly devastating. Elton John didn't post a photo, he didn't share a memory, he just said what he felt in that moment, and it hit like a lightning bolt across social media feeds, already flooded with tributes. Ozzy was a true original. I'll miss him dearly, Elton wrote. That was it. No hashtags, no grand send-off. But in a world where celebrity tributes often feel scripted or curated by PR teams, this one stood out precisely because of what it didn't say. Fans stopped scrolling, musicians reposted, rock blogs quoted it within minutes. And everyone who knew even a sliver of Elton's history with Ozzy understood this was more than just a passing condolence. It was the sound of grief, quiet and real. And when the news broke that Elton would attend the private memorial, it confirmed what many already suspected, that their bond went far deeper than that one 2020 song. But before that emotional goodbye in Birmingham, it was this understated message that kicked off a wave of mourning across generations. And what made that message land so hard? It wasn't just who said it, it was everything behind it. The friendship, the history, and the things Elton didn't say that made fans ask what was really going on behind the scenes. They came from different planets, one draped in feathers and rhinestones, the other snarling from behind a wall of black eyeliner and crucifix chains. Elton John was the flamboyant piano virtuoso who lit up stadiums with shimmering pop anthems, while Ozzy Osbourne was the wild-eyed metal god who turned stage chaos into an art form. On paper, their worlds shouldn't have collided, let alone fused, but beneath the theatrical shells, both were survivors of an era that chewed up icons and spit out cautionary tales. They'd both battled personal demons, both rebuilt their careers more than once, and both knew the weight of public scrutiny on aging legends. So when the two finally met backstage at a benefit event in the early 2000s, the chemistry wasn't just mutual, it was electric. People who witnessed it said there was no ego, just instant respect. They didn't talk business. They talked about addiction, fatherhood, and what it meant to still be standing. What began as casual admiration turned into a quiet friendship, one not built on headlines but hospital visits, late-night phone calls, and mutual understanding. And when Ozzy was crafting what many feared would be his final studio album, there was only one voice he wanted on a certain song about mortality and legacy. That voice, of course, belonged to Elton John, because sometimes the most unexpected bonds are the ones that strike the deepest, and the music they created together would become the emotional centerpiece of a friendship few fans saw coming. When Ordinary Man dropped in early 2020, nobody knew it would become a prophetic anthem. Ozzy Osbourne, then already battling mounting health issues and stepping back from touring, poured everything into that track, his fears, regrets, and a lifetime of chaos distilled into 3 haunting minutes. But what turned the song from poignant to unforgettable was the voice that joined him midway through, Elton John, soulful and restrained, delivering lines that felt like a shared confession between old warriors who'd lived 100 lives. It wasn't just a duet, it was a statement. These weren't two aging rock stars clinging to nostalgia. This was an unfiltered glimpse into their mortality, legacy, and mutual reverence. Elton didn't just lend vocals, he brought gravity. In the studio, witnesses say the room fell silent when he sang. Ozzy reportedly wiped tears from his eyes and called it one of the most emotional moments of his career. For fans who'd grown up idolizing both men, the song wasn't just music, it was closure in slow motion. Suddenly their friendship wasn't a rumor, it was on record, pressed into vinyl and streaming through every device on Earth. The music video showed imagery of burning roses, collapsing stages, and ghost-like reflections, symbols of time slipping away. It was as if they knew the clock was ticking, and this was their way of saying everything while they still could. The release didn't just resonate with longtime fans, it sparked viral reactions, celebrity reposts, and even drew in younger listeners curious about these two legendary voices confronting the inevitable. And with hindsight, many now believe Ordinary Man was more than a single. It was a farewell letter sealed in harmony, and the first public hint that this brotherhood meant more than anyone had realized. When Elton John released his short tribute to Ozzy, it wasn't just the message that got people talking, it was the timing. Just weeks earlier, rumors had swirled about Elton's own declining health. Whispers about his eyesight, mobility issues, and private hospital visits had been surfacing since late 2024, and though his team downplayed the reports, fans couldn't ignore the signs. During his final shows on the Farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, Elton appeared more subdued, often sitting at the piano longer and skipping his usual strut across the stage. There were moments when the spotlight caught a flicker of strain in his eyes, or his voice broke, not from fatigue, but from something deeper. Behind the sequins and spotlights was a man reckoning with his own mortality. So when he posted those raw, uncluttered words about Ozzy, "I'll miss him dearly," it felt like more than just a farewell to a friend. It felt like a glimpse into his own fears. Fans read between the lines. Was Elton thinking of his own legacy? Was he reflecting on how quickly time steals the greats? And the fact that he showed up, quietly and without fanfare, to Ozzy's private memorial in Birmingham spoke volumes. No interviews, no cameras, just presence. That kind of grief, shared silently by someone who knows their own curtain call might not be far behind, struck a nerve across generations. Suddenly the tributes felt heavier, the loss felt wider, because it wasn't just one legend saying goodbye to another. It was one of the last remaining voices of a generation mourning a fallen brother, while silently bracing for his own final verse. The official announcement came like a thunderclap. Ozzy Osbourne had passed away at 76. But while headlines exploded and tributes poured in from across the music world, the real goodbye unfolded far from the cameras. The public memorial held in Birmingham, his birthplace and spiritual home, was more than just a ceremony. It was a cultural moment. Thousands gathered in the streets, holding candles, donning vintage tour shirts, and singing along to classic Sabbath tracks that blasted from speakers rigged along the city square. But even as fans turned the city into a living tribute, the real weight of the loss settled during the private service days later, an intimate invitation-only gathering at the Osborne family estate. No live stream, no press releases, just a circle of people who truly knew the man behind the myth. Sharon Osbourne was seen walking guests in, her face unreadable behind black sunglasses. Kelly stood arm in arm with her brother Jack, visibly emotional but composed. And among the guests slipping through the wrought iron gates that day was Elton John, dressed in somber black, declining interviews and keeping his eyes to the ground. Inside, sources describe the atmosphere as thick with reverence and memory. Tony Iommi reportedly lit a candle near a framed photo of the original Black Sabbath lineup. Whispered accounts said a rare acoustic version of Changes played quietly as mourners shared stories, laughter and tears in equal measure. It wasn't spectacle, it was sacred. No press was allowed past the gates, and those who attended have kept their silence, honoring the privacy Ozzy's family fiercely protected in his final days. But outside, in the world still trying to process the loss, fans could only imagine the emotions echoing within those walls. Because if the public said goodbye with cheers and tears, the private farewell was something else entirely, a closing chapter written in whispers, candlelight, and the kind of silence only legends earn. The moment Ozzy's death was confirmed, the internet lit up, not just with grief, but with speculation. Fans weren't just mourning, they were digging, theorizing, and connecting dots that may or may not exist. One of the biggest rumors, that Ozzy left behind an entire vault of unreleased music, some of it possibly recorded with Elton John during the Ordinary Man sessions. Several fan forums began circulating a supposed track list of B-sides that never made it to streaming platforms, with cryptic titles like Echoes of the End and Stone Eyes. No official source has confirmed these titles exist, but the buzz hasn't died down. Others claim Elton and Ozzy exchanged private voice memos in the final weeks, emotional messages that were never meant for the public but might surface someday if the family approves. Again, that's pure speculation, and no family member has mentioned such messages publicly. Then there's the theory that Elton may dedicate a final live performance to Ozzy before retiring for good. While some fans point to Elton's history of tribute sets, like those for Princess Diana and Freddie Mercury, his camp has remained completely silent on any plans for a posthumous concert gesture. Still, social media exploded when a fan account posted an AI-generated mock-up of a tribute tour called The Final Curtain Elton for Ozzy, sparking false headlines before being debunked. Meanwhile, whispers about Ozzy's last words, what was said in those final hospital visits, and whether he knew how close the end was continue to swirl across Reddit, YouTube, and rock forums. Some say Sharon recorded a goodbye message from him to fans. Others insist that Kelly hinted at it during a teary-eyed live stream she later deleted. But again, none of this is confirmed, and most of it likely never will be, because for every ounce of truth, there are 10 more of myth. And when it comes to legends like Ozzy, the lines between fact, fantasy, and fandom blur faster than you can hit refresh. For the Osborne family, grief has never been a private affair, but that doesn't mean it's ever been easy. From the early days of the Osbournes' reality show to their more recent, quieter chapters, Sharon, Kelly, and Jack have spent years balancing public visibility with deeply personal battles. So when Ozzy passed, the world didn't just lose a rock legend, it watched a family brace for impact. Kelly Osbourne, who once spiraled in the shadow of fame, has spent the last decade redefining herself as a sober mother and mental health advocate. In the weeks following her father's death, she posted a cryptic message, "I love you, Dad, always have, always will," with no photo, no flair. there. Fans who followed her story recognized the restraint. Jack, known for his quiet resilience and documentary work, has largely stayed out of the spotlight since Ozzy's passing, but sources close to the family say he's taken on the role of emotional anchor, helping manage logistics while holding space for his mother and sister. Sharon, ever the matriarch, has been uncharacteristically silent. No interviews, no morning show appearances, no public breakdowns. For someone who once micromanaged Ozzy's tours down to the second, her retreat from the media feels telling. Behind closed doors, the Osbournes are reportedly leaning hard into one another, rediscovering what family looks like without its thunderous center. Friends close to the family say they've turned to old photo albums, voice recordings, and even unreleased home footage that might someday be shared in tribute. But for now, it's private, and that's rare for a clan whose name has been synonymous with reality TV and public chaos. This time, the grieving isn't performative, it's protective, and in that quiet, fans are seeing something new. A family that once wore dysfunction like a badge is now modeling grace under pressure. Because while the world remembers the Prince of Darkness, they remember a husband, a father, and a force that left a silence too loud to fill. Ozzy Osbourne wasn't just a frontman, he was a cultural force who helped rewrite the rules of what music could be and what it meant to live on the edge. His death doesn't just mark the end of a life, it draws a heavy line under an era where rock stars weren't brands or algorithms, they were hurricanes. And Elton John, he's one of the last surviving icons of that same generation, cut from the same unpredictable, unforgettable cloth. Together, their friendship became something symbolic, a bridge between chaos and melody, between metal's raw aggression and pop's emotional introspection. That's why the silence following Ozzy's death felt so loud. It wasn't just about losing a legend, it was the growing realization that the legends are leaving us, one by one, slowly, then all at once. With Bowie, Prince, and now Ozzy gone, Elton's brief tribute echoed with a kind of dread. Who's left to carry the torch when the originals are gone? These weren't just musicians, they were rebels, survivors, creators of soundtracks that defined decades. Their faces weren't filtered, their flaws weren't hidden, and their genius wasn't processed through streaming stats. They lived hard, loved loud, and performed like the world was ending every night, and that's why their exits feel personal. Because for millions of fans across the globe, Ozzy's voice wasn't just in their playlists, it was tied to memories, rebellion, heartbreak, first concerts, and the sound of growing up. And Elton's mourning wasn't just a friend losing a friend, it was a siren for everyone who grew up during a time when rock was religion. Because this wasn't just one loss, it was a reminder that time is catching up to the greats, and when they go, they take pieces of our history with them. And we're left scrambling to hold on to whatever echoes still remain. Elton John has never been short on words when it comes to honoring the people he loves. From soul-stirring performances at funerals to full-blown tribute concerts, he's built a legacy not just on music, but on the way he commemorates those who've shaped his journey. So when Ozzy Osbourne passed, and Elton's statement came down to just 2 lines, the world noticed. It wasn't just brief, it was haunting. Ozzy was a true original. I'll miss him dearly. That's all he said. No lyrics quoted, no stories shared, no behind-the-scenes memories unearthed. For someone who once rewrote a tribute song for Princess Diana overnight and sang it live before royalty, this stark message felt out of place until you realized it wasn't. It was deliberate, because sometimes silence screams louder than any ballad. Insiders close to Elton say he's been in a deeply reflective state since Ozzy's passing, skipping press engagements and avoiding questions about future performances. It's not grief performed, it's grief processed. And in that silence, fans have begun to assign meaning. Was it a private vow to keep the rest of their story between them? A decision to honor Ozzy in actions rather than words, or was Elton simply too shaken to say more? Whatever the reason, the quiet has amplified the mystery. Viewers flooded comment sections, begging for more, for anything. An old photo, a tour anecdote, a quote from their time in the studio. But nothing came, and that absence has created a strange kind of reverence, proof that not all tributes need volume to carry weight, because when someone like Elton John chooses to say less, it forces everyone to lean in closer, to sit with the moment, and to recognize that sometimes the most powerful goodbyes aren't shouted, they're whispered. And that whisper, it's still echoing, even as the feed scrolls on. In the end, what remains isn't the chaos, the headlines, or even the controversies, it's the music, the memories, and the moments that stitch themselves into people's lives. Ozzy Osbourne didn't just front a band, he fronted a movement. He gave a sound to rebellion, a face to unpredictability, and somehow, through decades of addiction, comebacks, and near-death moments, became a symbol of survival. Elton John, on the other hand, built his legacy on melody and vulnerability, turning his battles into ballads and his triumphs into anthems. Together, they didn't just sing a duet, they embodied one. One was chaos, the other, clarity. One was fire, the other finesse, but both were forged in the same unforgiving fire of the music industry, shaped by loss, and kept alive by love. Love for their craft, their families, and unexpectedly, for each other. And now, with Ozzy gone and Elton inching closer to his own final curtain call, the question isn't just about what we've lost, it's about what we're holding on to. the bootlegs, the vinyl scratches, the lyrics that once felt like lifelines. Because in a world obsessed with what's next, it's easy to forget the legends who gave us everything long before hashtags and viral clips. Maybe that's why Elton said so little. Maybe he knew the noise would only distract from the truth, that greatness doesn't need a headline to be remembered. It just needs time, and listeners willing to hear the echoes. So as the world moves forward and the feed refreshes, one thing is certain, the tracks they left behind won't fade. They'll live in headphones, car rides, midnight breakdowns, and comeback playlists for generations. And somewhere, maybe not today, but soon, someone will stumble upon that duet, two aging voices meeting in the middle, and realize that music like that doesn't just happen. It's built, it's burned into history, and it never truly dies.